Hey, welcome back. In this section you're going to learn how to add a tweet using the post request. So far we can only read hot text, but we can't post any. This requires urgent fixing. So first we're going to create a compose Svelte component inside components, and then we're going to import it inside the home index Svelte. So here we just have a simple component. We're going to bind the value of tweet. Here we have the max characters. Then we have here a reactive value characters left that's equal to the max characters minus the tweet length. And we have some markup here, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing complicated here. So we can go to the source, we can create it under components, so you can say compose Svelte. Let me close the sidebar, and then let's add a script tag. We can say language TypeScript, then let's add the tweet, say max characters 140 like on Twitter. Then we're going to have a reactive value characters left equal to max characters minus the tweet length. And then let's add the markup. We can add compose. Here we have an image that's going to be profile, the hard-coded username, but you can get it from the session, right? Avatar, type P. The description is going to be avatar. And then so it's more readable, let me do it like this. The action is home, remember the endpoint we created. Method is going to be post, and also I'm going to disable autocomplete because it's really annoying, and that's my highly technical reason for it, right? So we can say input type text, but we can add an ARIA label because we don't have a label. So we can say enter your tweet, say bind value to the tweet, right? So it matches this, so we know what the user typed and we can track it. And then the most important part, we have to give it a name of tweet, so we can grab the value, and then let's give it a placeholder. What's your hot take, right? So let me save this, and we get auto formatting, which is nice. And then let's add the submit. So you can say class button. We're going to give it a class of error if characters left is less than 0. Then we're going to add disabled for a nice user experience. I'm going to say characters left less than or equal to 0. And then this is optional, but I want to be explicit, type submit. So for example, if you had any other buttons in your forms, you would have to specify type button, otherwise it would act like a submit. Yeah, so we can just type submit. And then we can just add the text, right? Let me just undo this quickly so we can do this. Yeah, just add characters left. Sometimes prettier works against you, right? Max characters, we're going to say the text should be tweet, or just return the characters left. And that's pretty much it for our component. We're going to copy the styles, again nothing special, some layout and basic styles. Here's our error, that's the color of tomato. So yeah, let's just save it, and we just need to import it, right? So let's go back to home, in our roots, home, here is our index. So right here, we're in home index, and this is the responsive view because I have this narrow window. If I zoomed out, we would see the desktop layout, right? Let me put it at 100%. And depending how we see the data, your user ID might be different. So you might post as Bob or as me or as anyone else you added, right? But you can go inside Prisma Studio and change it, or you can just reseed it, but it's not really that important, right? Yeah, so let's just add it here below the title. Start typing compose, and then you can import it. Just press enter, let me close it. Here it's at the top, so let's see it here. It should appear, and that's awesome. So we can see it has this awesome ability to add the tweet. So let's see error message, and it's disabled. So here's another important thing. Why do we do client-side navigation and server-side navigation? So for example, client-side navigation is mostly for the user experience. If the user didn't have this feedback that they exceeded the tweet limit, it would be really frustrating when they go to submit it and then they get an error. But we can get a nice user experience this way. And another thing is that anyone can open developer tools. They can go to this button and they can literally remove disabled, and they can submit it. And then if we don't account for it on the server, we're screwed, right? So we have to do proper validation on the server. So yeah, so let me close this and refresh this for good measure. So if I go here, we're going to add the post endpoint to our shadow endpoint. So if we go to the routes home, index.ts, remember, here we're fetching the tweets. We can add the post endpoint here. We can say export const post, it's going to have the same type, request handler. Make it async. Then we're going to the structure request. Yeah, and then let's get the form, which is going to be await request form data, and it's much easier with TypeScript now. Say const tweet, you can say form get tweet, and this part is only for TypeScript because TypeScript freaks out. It's like, oh, what is this tweet? This really isn't a string. What are you talking about? It's a form data entry value. And then you can just say here, if you're lazy, to string, or I want it to be more specific. I want to say string. So yeah, so TypeScript is going to be happy. So here is the validation I was talking about. So we can add some naive validation here, but you should probably use a validation library like Zod, Joy, or whatever. And Zod is really great because it also gives you TypeScript schema validation. So you can have a nicer API to work with instead of doing it by hand like this. But of course, it's up to you. So we can add something naive, like we can say tweet length is higher than 140. And then we can return a bad status like 400. Then for the body, we can say maximum tweet length exceeded. And this is going to get called by our error page, right? So it's going to output this. And then we just want to redirect back to home. And that's it. So we need to add this to the Prisma database, right? So we need to say await Prisma tweet create. And then we can just pass it the data. So we can say posted new date. For the URL, I'm going to use math random. We're going to get a hex value, and we're going to cut off the first two numbers, so we get a neat looking cool URL, right? So for the content, we can say it's going to be the tweet. Likes by default is going to be 0. And this is the interesting part. So how do we connect this tweet we're creating to the user? So we can say user connect where the ID is equal 1. So of course this is hard-coded, but you can get this from the session. And since we're using a shadow endpoint, we can return nothing. So the post is going to redirect to the page itself, right? And not anywhere else. Yeah, so this should work. So if we save this and we go straight to Twitter and give us our hot take, so we can say pineapple belongs on pizza, and we can add it. And it works, awesome. So before I leave, I think I could have done a better job last time explaining more about shadow endpoints, because for example, maybe it's really confusing, like if we have our feed here, how does this update exactly, right? So for example, here we have our value tweets that's going from the shadow endpoint, so it goes from the tweets. But then I just did a post, and then this maybe looks like magic to you. So it's post here, but we're not really updating here anywhere. So how does this happen? So basically when we post, like we've seen here, we add the value we post, and when the page refreshes, the default value is going to get the content, right? So our component is going to have tweets updated, right? And that's how we get the fresh tweets. So I hope that's more clear to you. And of course, if you have any feedback for me, I would appreciate it. Besides the thing I can change, like for example, my perfect English accent. So yeah, thank you and see you in the next one.